last year. We have had certain sessions. We also had some in-person meetups. Alice, I have met some of you prior to this as well. But now with Rashmi, Luchika also joining us, I think we will be able to host this on a regular basis. And we are always looking for more presenters to share their expertise and knowledge with the wider community. And today is Jenny's day. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Sonia, for being such a leader in multiple communities that I'm a part of. So I'm really excited. And I'll do a quick intro. So call me Jz.ai. I am a AI product and growth leader. I've worked at Capital One, Snap Finance, OfferPops, all the way from enterprise through early stage startup. And right now I'm doing consulting, teaching, and building AI software. So I wanted to start the session by just showing you a website that I built with AI. This is something I'd love to get your feedback on, and I think that's at the crux of design thinking and the design sprint is getting a ton of feedback. But, this session is about design sprint. So I actually wanted to ask all of you, have you run design sprints? Or are you interested in running design sprints in your company?
Definitely interested in doing so. I have done design sprints for my other products, like consumer products, not for AI products.
Yeah, the same with me as well, Jay-Z. I've primarily been in the enterprise B2B space. So I come from product background, so I've worked with my design counterparts to run some of these, but really interested to find what's the difference from an AI while you're building AI products, basically.
Yeah, can you explain what design sprint is? We might be doing it, we just probably haven't heard the word or the right terminology. So I just wanted to know if you could start with just what a design sprint is, and then we could go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. These are great. So it sounds like you all have either run or are interested in design sprints, but since this group is about Gen AI product management, you want to add the data and AI element to the sprint. The sprint from a Google design sprint perspective is really about increasing the velocity of innovation. In the traditional sprint, there are 5 days, and at the end of the 5th day, you have a prototype that's signed off by stakeholders. And as you know, in an enterprise like Google with tens of thousands of employees, it's really hard to innovate or even get a decision made from stakeholders. So it's a process by which you can innovate faster. You could do it every week. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm curious for you all, what is the goal of your design sprint? Is it innovation? Is it stakeholder alignment? Is it AI? All of it. Awesome. And then the last question before I show my sprint is the question about problems. So I teach AI design thinking at the college level as an adjunct. And one of the problems is difficulty defining the problem, stakeholders not knowing what the problem is, or not being able to share it. So I'm curious, what is the biggest problem in the design sprints you've run?
This is Sejal. So I think one of the biggest challenges in design sprints is just getting alignment. And so ensuring you have the right stakeholders in the room. And so you're not doing copy and, UI changes at the nth hour. So really pulling in the right folks at the right time and aligning on this is your last call or forever hold your peace.
Right. If you didn't show up, then, it's time to just go with it until the next version. I think that's a huge problem in, especially big corporations, but just in design overall, because everyone has an opinion. And the design sprint really solves that by having Monday and Wednesday the first and third day of the 5-day sprint be the only opportunity for stakeholder feedback. So if you don't show up, if your VP doesn't vote on that third day, then they implicitly accept the design on Friday. They're not going to go in and change it. That's a great question. All right, well, think about other questions in Sprint that I created with my data science counterparts at Capital One when I led machine learning projects there. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. This is called Turning Machine Learning Ideas into Products. And let me zoom in. This is the sprint. The places where it incorporates AI and data is in step 2, 5, 6, 2, 5, 6. But I'll just go over it at a higher level. First, it's to see if machine learning could solve the problem. The problem there is that AI is such a hot topic that, especially at Capital One and maybe the companies you're working at, every executive wanted AI in their product. But sometimes a Bayesian equation, not an algorithm, is suitable. And other times, they don't know what the problem is, so there's no way that we could come up with a successful solution. The next step is quantifying the enterprise value. So a lot of you talked about stakeholders and understanding who all the stakeholders are from an investment point of view, but also from a downstream impact point of view. From the yes and the no's is really a big part of the sprint. Then it's the value. How many millions of dollars? For us, it had to be over 100 million annual revenue to make it worthwhile to employ like a very expensive data science team. So how much value can we calculate? Is this the right value for us right now? That's the fourth part of the sprint. And then the fifth part, or the third part is evaluating data needs. So the problem here is that a lot of times people don't have a data set. They don't have cleaned up data. They don't have a trained data where you can tell the model, this is the solution, this is the outcome, this is the goal I want. And here's a subset of the things that I don't want. So you have to have inputs and training. And then the last part is defining the success criteria. So what is the output? Do we have to have a 3% increase in conversion or a 10% increase in revenue? And to get there, what kind of data would we need to see? How much data? How often would there be training? How often would the user share data with us? So to summarize, there are 4 parts: suitability, value, data, and success. So I know that's a lot, and I'll pause for questions.
So does it mean like let's say if it's a week's design sprint, like we pick like one day to tackle each area?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there are 8 areas here, and I would say that in most companies, it's hard to tackle it in 1 week. So the minimum would be 2 weeks, where you do, 4 steps each week. I think realistically, actually, what happens is that you do this with one person on a data science team, and then you do this with one person on a business team. You kind of start with an ally in each team. You do this process when they have time. Maybe that takes a month. And then once you have those allies, then they can go up their chains and get the budget for a team to be dedicated to doing this for 8 days. And that 8 days can spread across a month or even a couple of months. Does that help?
Yeah, so what I'm understanding is like we are doing these sprint sessions not like bringing everyone together, but we are thinking of like identifying the key stakeholders and then basically setting them up, or basically creating the alignments, uh, get their buy-in by in their one-on-one meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. So the stakeholder alignment, this part 3 is actually the hardest step, as you all know. And so once you do that in the beginning, then the goal maybe in month 2 is to have a full week long or 2 week long workshop where everyone is in the room and is making the decision, so that on Friday, no one comes in and changes it all, making you have to go back and do it. So absolutely, you have to start somewhere, and that's with one stakeholder.
Got it. Alice also has a question. Alice?
Yeah, hi. Can you give us like an example, very concrete, and go through each of the steps with this example so that we can so that it's more concrete and we can relate much more?
Yeah, absolutely. So
okay, awesome.
Here in my expertise, I specialize on artificial intelligence video generation. And so a lot of the problems that the founders have is they can't get sticky growth. So they have, like 1 million users sign up, but they always bounce, like they never come back. So it's really difficult for them to get to a person who pays, or a person who pays for 4 months, like a quarter. So they would say that the problem is that they want to have all the competitive features because there's so many startups doing AI video. There's a new one every single day. But I always struggle and try to get them to define the problem as they want a sustainable base of paying customers. So that's where defining the problem is important. Do you have a question there, or should I move on to step 2?
This is clear for me. Maybe others have questions, but for me, you can move to step 2.
Okay, great. So today's process of them.
Rashmi also had a question. Rashmi?
No, I think Jizzy, you can finish this flow and then I'll ask my question.
Oh, are you sure? You can ask now.
I don't want to interrupt your flow. Let's get the example. I think that's also important. So.
Okay. So today's process, right, when a user signs up for AI video, they're like, oh, I don't know what story to tell, or you want me to generate text to video. I don't know if I should use this post or this blog we wrote. Like, I'm just going to try like kittens dancing. Right. So today's process is one where it's very manual, and the user like goes back and forth. In the end, they come out with like a very generic cat video. There's so many cat videos on the internet. So what you would have to do in the process is make sure that you can find videos from creators who have actually monetized that video. So what were the steps that they took? Like they looked at previous videos that they made without AI, and they looked at the content that monetized. And they took a version of that, like, oh, want to know what the best email drip campaign is? Like they took that sentence, they put it into the text generator. The text generated an AI video, maybe 10 versions of that campaign that monetized for them in the past. And then had an analytics dashboard that's like, of these 10 versions of how do you start a drip campaign? These 3 monetize the best, and we're going to help you create another 3 videos from the 3 that monetize the best. So this flow of a successful creator is missing in every like AI video product out there. So the process is about understanding the successful process and then seeing if machine learning could automate and speed up the content creation process instead of the human having to do it. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So Rashmi, do you want me to keep going, or you have your question?
Yeah, I think my question was just around the logistics. I think I got a little confused with that. With respect to, we talked about this is usually a 1 week or a 2 week, a setup that you actually walk through these. But then you also mentioned about, hey, maybe there's a prerequisite to this. Maybe you're kind of bringing that allies across these different stakeholder teams. So I'm a little confused then if you're kind of having those individual one-on-one conversations across these stages. What are you actually doing together in those 1 or 2 weeks that you are there? I think I'm not clear a little bit
Oh,
on the logistics there.
I feel like I planted you in the audience because that's exactly step 3. So thank you for the question and the timing. So let me clarify. This 2-week sprint is the destination. You want to be able to have the sprint every quarter, before PI planning, before a major OKR. But to get to the velocity where everyone buys in, that the whole team is dedicated to this for 2 weeks, to get there, initially you'll have to have these one-off stakeholder meetings, a smaller sprint without the whole team, to get the buy-in and the budget so that you can have this 2-week sprint every quarter. And I think your other question was just, what are the stakeholders doing if they're not in the sprint itself? So initially the stakeholders are helping you define the problem. Is it a problem that machine learning can solve? Is it a high value problem to the business? And once they buy into the fact that, they have a current problem like AI, don't know what to do with AI, my competitors are doing AI, should I be doing AI? Should I move another piece of the roadmap to next year so I can do AI today? When they have a burning question like that, then you can use the sprint to start engaging them. But the sprint velocity doesn't really pick up until after you've gotten that buy-in. Does that answer your question?
Oh, got it. Yes, it does. It does. Thank you.
Yeah, because they don't want you to burn like 2 weeks of, a full team's velocity without talking to them and getting their approval.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm going to actually move on to 4, the value, which is how you're going to get their buy-in, right? So I'm sorry? Oh, let me know if you have a question, Sonia.
So I have a question. So the design sprints, meant to be 5 days. It's like a whole group of people. Sometimes it can be quite large that are like, that's all they're doing for 5 days. And people see it as a pretty big investment of time, right? Because people are working on this and money, right? Because it's opportunity cost. A lot of people are working on this versus something else. So with this repeat approach, quarterly, how broad is the stakeholder group that you would include in the sprint? And is it truly? I mean, you were mentioning 2 weeks every quarter. That ends up being 2 months at the span of a year of people's time. It's a lot. So who would be involved on that ongoing basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you have a pizza-sized team, if you have a dedicated product manager, designer, analyst, data scientist, engineers, that's 5 functions, you would need the leads and perhaps their VPs to sign off. So that's 10 people to sign off initially. But at Capital One, I also I managed multiple teams, and they had back end and fraud dependencies. So that would be like 10 times 3, right? Because all of those other teams are hopefully benefiting. They have like monetary value from this sprint. But if not, they're going to have to change their processes and debug, and they're going to be impacted. So I would say start small with your dedicated resources, and then if you have other projects that are bigger, I would wait until you have buy-in from one team before you go to the other teams.
And that ongoing quarterly basis, because it made the way I heard you describing this is, you're doing the meeting before the meeting to see like how are we shaping this, who should be involved, like what's the scope of this. Then you're having like the kickoff design sprint, but it sounded like once you get the AI or ML project off the ground, it's kind of like a check-in to make sure you're focused on the right thing and that your energy is focused in the right way. Is that the right way or the wrong way?
Oh, that's a good point. So let's say, you have that one dedicated team. Every quarter, you're going to want to release new features. And so this replaces like pulling people aside and, having side conversations. And then at the end, like Rashmi suggested, having your VP come in and be like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something else. So this is a replacement of that planning or innovation cycle.
Okay. Thank you.
And Jenny, one more question I have is like, what do you suggest the right time, like for every week, or let's say we are doing twice a week, and whatever that could be, like how long one sprint meeting should go on? Is it like half an hour? What in your experience has been the right amount of time?
Yeah, so when you have data scientists, I would say half a day in the morning is max. Like it's really difficult for them to participate a whole day because they also have other deadlines. So what you could do is have rotation, right? So you have a lead start here, then their direct report start here, and then in their daily stand-ups, they're giving the update, status update, and then a third person come here. It's very hard to get like a data science lead to through and through come to all of these on their own. And I almost don't recommend it because then they're not communicating it to the team.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. Should I move on, or if we have other questions, we can just discuss those.
So I have one more point to say here, Jenny. I know everybody has a lot of questions. We have half an hour. If Jenny, you are open, and if folks have more questions, would you be open to kind of split this session in two sessions, and maybe we can do one next week or a follow-up one? Up to you. And I think everyone. I know we still have half an hour. We can perhaps get it done, but if that's another approach that I'm thinking, where everybody can really ask their questions, and if you are available.
Yeah, I'm open to that. I also have the wrap that I did at the data science salon presenting this, so I'd love to show that either now or at the beginning of the next meeting. So I think then it's just a poll for the audience. Do you want to continue now, or do you want to think about some questions and come back later?
We will see. Yeah, I think that if everybody is fine, we can. I'm fine with that. By the way, yes, that way everybody gets to really ask their questions and get answers. Does
Okay.
anyone does anyone want to say anything on that? Maybe yes or no. You can chat. You can write in the chat or say whatever works for you, right?
I'd like to get through the content if possible, and then we could do Q&A after.
Q&A after, as in like so.
I was just thinking maybe Jay-Z could just run through the whole of her slide first, and then we can ask more questions.
Oh yeah, so Sonia, I think she's saying without opening up for questions, I go from 5 to 8, and then we open up for questions.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good way too. And then you have something else as well that right after this.
Oh, in half an hour.
No, I mean something else you wanted to show as well.
Yes, I can show the wrap.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, maybe we can go with the content.
Do you guys want to see the wrap now, just to take a little break, or? Okay. So this is a wrap that my data scientists wrote for me, and they made me perform it in public. And it was very embarrassing. So, can you see this YouTube screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know if you cannot hear the audio.
But it's okay, because I think bad is good in rap culture, so you can let me know after. It is being taped, yeah. If you got problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but machine learning ain't one. Thank you. You can keep going. Data scientists, product managers, business analysts, and tech, all working together as one, creating the Capital One machine learning business model canvas, delivering results faster together as one.
Okay, so I'll just pause there. Any questions about that before I go back to the canvas?
Yeah, I think we can go back to the canvas.
Hard bunch.
That was fun. That was funny. Yeah.
All right, so let me get back to the canvas. You can see the blue slide again?
Yes.
Okay, so evaluating data needs and defining success. So here is really where the data comes into play. The problem here is that a lot of teams, they don't have any data or it's unstructured. So what you need is data quality and data quantity. You need to have some kind of training that, this is the data we need. This means success. Like in the multi-am bandits, the Go, model, there's a chess game and the machine clearly knows what the outcome should be and it figures out how to get there on its own. But if you haven't told the machine, you haven't trained it, like this is 50, score 50 and above is pass and 49 and below is fail, then you can't even get started. So a lot of you asked about the pre-stakeholder preparation and priming. You need a data set. Like you don't need a terabyte of data, but you need enough data to even get started with the sprint. And then moving on to defining success. So if the system is correct, then, are you expecting the system to be correct 40% of the time? What is the confusion matrix, the precision versus the recall? And if the data is wrong, if the output is wrong, like is there going to be a hack or some kind of very negative and expensive outcome if the output is wrong? So therefore, you probably want to prioritize precision over recall. And then the last part is success criteria. So if the machine is 1% better than human accuracy, that's probably not going to be success. So how much better does it have to perform than humans? How many headcounts does it need to replace? If it's replacing manual headcount, is it hiring more supervisors, like in terms of supervising the model and all the new roles that come up with AI? So here, is the end of the sprint. I'll pause for questions.
Jenny, would you want to share some anecdotes from the project there where you ran this sprint?
Yeah, so I can walk through that AI video example. So here we've talked about monetization as the problem. Today's process, we'd have to look at monetized creators and how they make videos that actually make them money. Who, in addition to the creators, it would be their audiences, any brands that they're partnering with, and the platforms, right? So TikTok versus YouTube. And all of these should have a person that would be at stake who would benefit from the solution. The value would be, I think, to the brand. So since a lot of creators are partnering with Shoes, I saw them at Art Basel. So Shoes would have to see a significant lift in visits to their websites, visits to their store, hopefully, more shoe sales. That's the value that this part of their marketing strategy should bring. And of course, it's going to be compared against, if we're just doing email and not AI video, the email is always going to perform better, but AI video should perform maybe half as much as email. And then in terms of inputs, these would be all the viral videos. What makes a video go viral? Is it having a real person on the screen? Is it having a hook where you ask a question, but then you leave the answer till later? Is it having a short form video that's 30 seconds? This is different for every creator, right? So some creators don't even show their face on video, but they have hundreds of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers. So for that creator and for that brand, the successful inputs are there. And then the training. So you have to tell the model, like, number of followers is not as successful as conversion to sales. So if you have data that's tying the number of subscribers and followers to a pixel or a click on a website, especially like the cart or the buy now, button, that's what you need to train the data on. The output would be 10 viral videos that are ranked by potential revenue, not ranked by potential virality. And then a success criteria is like, we thought that these videos would monetize, but actually only one monetized. And how can we replicate that one? What are the inputs and training that actually made that video monetize? Yeah, any questions about that? Or I'd love to hear all your ideas. Like, how do you think you could apply this in your job?
I had a question. So when we're considering sprints in AI specifically, what kind of deliverables are you looking at from the team? For example, like in the example that you just gave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you have a 2-week sprint and everybody's coming in with whatever goals that they have for the sprint. With the video example, are you able to break down potentially an example of what that deliverable in the AI world looks like compared to, like, in the normal product realm, whether it's mobile or, whatever other products you have, it's very defined on what your requirements are, whether it's a design requirement or an engineering need. How does it look in a sprint for AI?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, like you said, the end is requirements. It's a prioritized MVP. But to go through, the problem is one that all your stakeholders sign off on. They want to monetize now. So for startups, there's actually a lot of pressure to monetize right now, but it also means that they're going to stop getting VC funding, right? So the board, your stakeholders would have to sign off that they want to monetize right now. Then once you get that sign off, then you would have, I think, traditional product management UX videos of a creator looking at successful monetized videos, on one screen, and then opening up your tool on another screen and try to generate the video, and then a third screen, how they would publish to TikTok, for example. So that's traditional, like these are traditional product management deliverables. Then the who, I think, is unique to my sprint because the stakeholder map is like a RACI. So it's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And so this helps you figure out who's accountable, who needs to sign off, hopefully only 5 to 10 people. But then you'll have a whole communication plan of, once that person signs off, I'm going to write a deck and do a town hall and put it in Slack, and the marketing team is going to tell everyone. So those will be the communication deliverables from the who. I also think from the who, it's giving you visibility with decision makers, right? So you should be having one-on-one meetings with each of these 5 stakeholders and elevating your brand as a thought leader. So those meetings, in addition to all the communication assets, would be the output. Then the value, this is tricky, right? So in social media, there's the mid-funnel clicks and views and time spent versus the end of the funnel attribution. So Google would say within 24 hours of a click, if someone bought, they would attribute 80% of that sneaker sale to that video that was clicked. So the attribution here, like who's going to pull the data on linking to sales, like, you know, who's going to verify the data that it is in a format that other teams also use. The same data set is reliable. So there's the value. It's going to increase $100,000 in sales. And then the inputs. So then you have the creator's own videos that have monetized, top monetizing TikTok videos. You have brand top monetizing videos, and then the training. So these videos monetize, but we don't really like them because we had to hire a very expensive creator. But these other videos, you know, we hired an inexpensive creator and they really launched us. Like they really paid full attention to us. So we want to train the model on that. Then the output. So, you know, we have these 10 videos that the GAN generative AI model generated. Which of these were selected by the creator and why? And, you know, does the creator have to be happy with 50% of the videos in order to pay for the video tool and subscribe for a 4-month contract? Or, you know, they just have to be happy with one and start paying you for a 1-month contract. That's the output. And then the success criteria is if you have 100 new creators paying you, is that enough? Like all startups need to get to $1 million annual recurring revenue. If 100 creators pay you every single month, you have a cost to retain them and then a cost to acquire new creators. So is that enough to get another round of funding or your Series A? Any questions about that? All right, now I'm gonna like make this video tool. Like I should make this. Yeah, I'm curious how you all might take the next step. You know, would you talk to your non-product stakeholders, like your design partner or your technical partner? Would you talk to your manager? What do you think would be the next step in implementing this, or any obstacles?
So in my experience, when you work on like with the part of data, you can design whatever you want in very like precise sprints, but at some point you always run into real problems with reality data, right? And there is very often huge discrepancies between what you've been thinking during these design phases and what you want eventually to deliver at the end of the process. So you need a lot of like readjustment during the execution time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what your stakeholders signed for, it's going to be extremely different from what you will be delivering. And so I think all these contingencies and all this like luck and lack of luck should be also considered in this type of project, right? Because when you open the data set, when you start like implementing things, then you realize you missed some very important things at the beginning because in 5 days, you cannot find all this information. And designing AI-powered products is very different from designing code-powered product. Just like designing a UI with like buttons and backend ping, etc., is very different from developing a model, because all components are so important that if you made a 20% mistake at some point, it's not going to create 20% mistake in the results. Everything will multiply, and you can be very, very far from what you were trying to reach just because your data set was not that accurate, or that representative of the reality, for instance. And so I think you need a constant like feedback loop, and also the open mindset to acknowledge that it might happen differently from what you expected at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So the AI design sprint is different than a non-AI design sprint. And so there's this company called Snorkel.ai. They just presented at AWS Gen AI Day. So they do training where you have data sets and you say this data set is the goal, this data set is the anti-goal. So I guess my question to you, Alice, is what do you think about doing this a lot with a small team and then having
so you have a ton of company working on labeling data. You have Scale, you have Labelbox, you have Snorkel, you have Watchful, you have my own company. You have a ton of this company, right? They have all different techniques. Snorkel is working on like programmatic, heuristic, and model distillations. Other companies are working with using humans, etc. But you can do whatever you want to label the data. The first thing is, in the first place, did you pick the first data set that was like coherent to what you were trying to achieve? And is the business metrics that you're using to measure your improvement, your progress, your results, mirroring exactly what you were trying to achieve? All these things, in my experience, are moving along your process. And what you design in this first initial sprint, you really need to acknowledge that you should not be obsessed by it, and you should be open to changing that also with your stakeholders. I think any AI project need a lot of education with stakeholders and a lot of like reality mindset, pragmatic mindset. Like, yeah, that's what we signed for, because that was the assumption we started to work with. But along the process, along the way, when labeling the data, when trying things out, we then realized that blah blah blah, and you need to adjust all the time.
Oh, I think you're obviously speaking from a ton of experience. I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to ask you how you would recommend running a sprint. So my question is,
I don't run sprints for AI projects. That's what I was very interested in, like having a presentation. My experience is like the way you develop like a product with data science input is very, very different. And so I was very interested in knowing how you were like using this design thinking framework, design sprint framework for AI, right? So now I know. I may try. My experience is like, you need to, from the product perspective, you need to be very hands-on, very empathetic with what data science is working on. And the way I usually do that is I try to time box things with them.
Yeah.
Like we have a definition of what we want to do because we have a problem to address, or because we have a novel idea that we want to explore, right? These are the two main reasons I'm working with them on product. And then we have two approaches. One is, here's the business metrics, and I give you a quarter to reach this business metrics with whatever model you can develop, and we productize that. Or the other way around is like, this is our problem, and you need to solve it you have 5 days to ideate and try to solve something. So sometimes it's like, I have a business metric, so this is a goal, and you have a quarter to reach the goal. And sometimes it's much more like, okay, let's work every day on what you can find as an idea. And at some point we will say, okay, it makes a cut. And we try to time box that into a sprint. And we run like usual coding sprints, right? So these are the two approaches I've been trying. I'm like, okay, this is interesting, and I should probably try that too. But I think what is very difficult with the data science project is like, you never know what's going to be outputted by your model.
Right.
And you have to try a huge variety of models, right? Regression, random forest, whatever you want, decision tree. So they need a lot of exploration time. And all this exploration time, you cannot do that in 5 days. This is very difficult, in my opinion. But in the meantime, you know that data scientists are very interested in researching. So you also have to say, stop, I have to productize, and we have to make money, guys. So it makes a cut. Let's ship it to production, right? And then let's iterate. So this is the value for me of having a business metrics. Like, whatever reach this point, this accuracy, or you also have to decide what is the matrix made for. Is it accuracy? Is it entropy? Is it F1? Blah, blah, blah. And when you agree on that, then you say, whatever reach this point, we ship to production. And I know you're not happy with that, but it will be enough for my customer. I will add value. I have a good go-to-market strategy for that. And then we keep capturing events from users, and you will use these events to improve what you've been already delivering, right? Continuous improvement and continuous discovery.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you already have the business problem and sign off to use a lot of data scientists' hours to solve it. So you've already like gotten to this step 5 and 6. Is that right?
Well, I think it depends.
Oh, okay.
Because also, I think in companies you have two approach. One is like we have a problem we want to solve, and we explore different way of like solving this problem. One of the way might be using ML or not, but it's not always using ML, right? So usually when product problem comes to me, this is already decided in some way that we're gonna use ML to solve something. But some other company, they're like, we put ML everywhere. We always address any problem with ML. I think it also depends on the company culture, maybe. What do you think?
I think right now everyone wants to put ML everywhere. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it might be like, is that a good idea also?
No,
maybe not.
It's so expensive.
So yeah, exactly. We don't really see what are the expense for ML, right? It's like a lot of people spending a lot of research time. And once you have developed something, you have cost of like hosting models, cost of inferences, you have the cost of maintaining everything, having up to data set, having the feedback loop to constantly improve, etc., etc. So sometime in the first part of your design sprint process, I think it's also the product role to kind of push back and say, wait, guys, we can probably do something easier, cheaper, and much more sturdy also. So I think I don't know.
I agree with you. I think that you're already in step 5. So it sounds like what would help is actually step 7 and 8, where you tell the data scientist, hey, didn't achieve the output or the success criteria. We still want to achieve the goal, but let's abandon this model, create other models like, the regression and other techniques and come again, because a lot of people, not just data scientists, get really obsessed with the solution. It's your baby, it's so elegant, and you had so many high hopes for it, and it's hard to actually stop and think of a better solution.
Totally. I don't want to hijack the meeting. Maybe you other have other like input or opinion.
No, that was a very great conversation, Alice. So Jenny, I think I understand like the situation that Alice is describing is further down the steps. I would now want to go back to figure out like on the evaluation, basically cost benefit analysis. What are some of the things that can be done upfront to really, as a product manager, like, hey, this is why we should be investing. Yes, something we want to innovate, something we want to improve, but with respect to the ROI for the business, how do we calculate that piece? I know we don't have enough time. I think we might run out of time in a few minutes, but I'm happy to have the answer of this maybe next time or another time if other folks have more questions. But this is one question that I have in mind.
I'll answer it really quickly, and then maybe in the messenger chat you all can let us know if you want to have another session. I think it's really tricky. So I'm going to continue with Alice's example. So she already has a model. It might not work. So in her situation, she would actually be able to go back to step 1 and be like, okay, my model doesn't work for what we were trying to do, but is there another part of the business that could benefit from this model, right? So she's an entrepreneur. She doesn't want to throw away the model. She wants to continue to motivate her scientists and help them think of other use cases for this failed model. I think, Sonia, in your situation, you would absolutely need to find a high ROI problem because it's the size of the opportunity. So it's the total addressable market times the depth of impact. Like, how much is a paying customer going to pay for this new ML feature instead of the existing non-ML features? So, you can just start with like number of data scientists times their salary. Like, let's say you have 3 data scientists, they all make $200,000 a year. Like, the cost is already $600,000, right? So in your ROI, you have to like make $1 million to justify that cost, not to mention like product managers, designers, and everyone else. So does that help?
Yeah. But how do we do that? Yeah, so that's like a cost, but how about the benefit?
Oh, so the benefit, yes. So a lot of you can do user interviews. Like, I do user research and always end it with like, how much are you going to pay for this? So for per user, like, are you going to pay us upsell? Let's say your subscription is $10 a month. Are you going to pay us $5 extra for this machine learning model? And the way you can do that is in your current subscription, you can give them like try this new AI feature for free. You don't have to have built the feature, but you can say this new AI feature benefits you by, I don't know, like monetizing 5-second videos. If they click on it, you get like 1,000 people to sign up for it. I think that's a great reason to start a sprint like this because you're like, I know people want this. Now we just have to build it.
Yeah.
No?
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's fine. Anyone else has any question? Or from your experience, anyone wants to share anything?
Why don't we put that in the messenger chat? I'm also available for 30-minute free consults for anyone who wants to discuss the stakeholders or the ROI of this whole process. Happy to help you navigate this tricky situation.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Jenny. This was really helpful.
Agreed. Very, very helpful. Thank you, Jenny, so much.
Thank you so much for the discussion. Yeah.
Thanks for your questions. Excellent
Thank
questions.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.